So when you first open your file, you're going to get 4 panels. You have sections in these 3 panels in different angles. And then you have a 3D panel. And all of this can be customized. So if you double click any of these, you maximize the size of them, for example, here. And there's all these mouse shortcuts. So if you use the scroll wheel, click and then drag up and down, it will magnify. If you use both mouse buttons and click and drag, it will move things around. And if you just scroll with the scroll wheel, it does nothing apparently. But you can click here and choose these different controls and then click and drag, for example, through your sections. Yeah. And the way that you look at 3D is slightly different. So just some basics. First of all, if you have your 3D button here pushed and toggled, you will see something in 3D, and this causes the computer to have to work pretty hard. So if you are doing anything in 2D only, you want to make sure that this button over here is turned off, and that will make this 3D view go away. Sometimes it doesn't immediately go away and you click and it updates. So turn it on as we're going to look at it. Double click to see it. Over here, you have a histogram that shows you your gray values distributed. You want to see the log of that, otherwise it's kind of hard to see. And it should be kind of a nice curve like this. If you have reconstructed data that looks large here on the y-axis on the left and then shoots downward, then you need to reconstruct your data because you are missing a lot of it. And what usually causes that is something like something like this particle will cause the auto reconstruction to fail, but that's another topic. So we're just doing Dragonfly. When you have your data, you can render it in a bunch of different ways, make it look a bunch of different styles, colors, everything like that. You might want to get just an overview like this. Maybe you're happy just seeing the skull like this, or the entire body, or whatever you've scanned. But usually what you want to do is pick out parts of your scan and show or highlight just certain regions, like certain bones, certain suites of bones together. And that is what we are going to talk about right now, the basics of doing that. So we can decide, and by we, I mean Ralph can decide which bone or region we want to do first, and we will go through that.
Well, we should pick one that is relatively easy. So maybe the neurocranium.
Okay.
Because if you do the higher palatinage or jaws, you have to deal with the teeth, and that might get complicated. Right?
Yeah. So let's see where we are at. Okay, so for organization purposes, what I want to do is talk about the basic method of segmenting. And then we're going to talk about what is, in my opinion, the most time efficient way of segmenting. So brute force is the tried and true way to segment something. So the first thing I would do if you're going to tackle the neurocranium is go into this cross-section view. You can click, rotate here, and I just like to align things. Then I kind of come through here and try to figure out where I'm looking, where I'm at. And we have neurocranium here, which is composed of a bunch of different bones. And yeah, this will be really a good example and a simple example, I think. So if you're going to make a segmentation, you have two views in Dragonfly. You have this main tab and you have a segmentation tab. Click over to your segmentation tab. Over here, you can extend these tabs to show all of these tools. And it looks really confusing at first, but you really only use a couple of things. So sometimes if I'm feeling really annoyed by it, I'll close all of these because you don't need them. You'll need this later. You don't need that now. All you need now are these basic tools and the painter. So in the painter, which is your most basic tool that you will use most frequently, you have 2D view and 3D view. So the only way to use these tools is to have the 2D view active if you're using a 2D view tool and a 3D view active if you're using the 3D view tool. And what I mean by active is if you double click and go back to this 4-panel view, you have a red box around whichever panel is active. So if I click over here, the box switches over here. And in that case, I can't use or even click on any of these tools. So if you're not paying attention and you're tired and frustrated and you're trying to do something and you're like, I can't, why won't it work? That's why. So that's one reason it won't work. So click over here. Another reason it won't work is if you have a bunch of different files over here, which you eventually will as you work, you might have another file clicked here, which isn't that obvious because the only change that happens is this becomes darker or lighter gray. Then you click away, it's darker gray. So maybe you have something else selected, but you're seeing this because it's on, the little eye is on. I should mention that the eye, once that's off, you can't affect the data set at all. You can't use the data set. So you have to turn this eye on to see your data. So you might have this eye on, but you're clicking something else. So you're seeing what you think you want to work with, but you've got something else selected. You still can't use this. So even though I have this 2D view selected and I'm clicking the tools, why won't it let me? Well, you probably don't have it also selected here. That took a long time to figure out. So that's what happens. So actually, I still can't select this. And I think that's because I haven't made a segmentation yet. So there's a third reason why you can't select your tools. In order to create a segmentation, there's two different ways. You can either make a new one and name it something helpful, like neurocranium. Right now, this doesn't matter. This almost never matters. The geometry of it, it'll pick your volume and doesn't matter the color. Click OK. And it appears over here with the same rules as the volume. You have an eye, which means it's active or available to use. And then you have 3D, which is crossed out because we are not using it. So now you have a segmentation that exists, but you don't have anything in your segmentation. So you have to actually paint something or do something with some of these tools to add some data to your segmentation. So maybe it's a good time to explain what a segmentation actually is. So what you have here is, am I going too fast, by the way? This is okay. What you have here is an image, and you have thousands of them, and each image has lots and lots of pixels that are some value of gray, dark, 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 dark gray, which is black, and then white, all the way from one end to the other. This is very intensive in terms of memory and size. So all of these different gray values, making this image, make it a large file size anyway, even if you just had one. But with a segmentation, what you're doing is you're actually labeling each one of these, but you're not each one of these pixels, but you're not just labeling them in 2D, you're actually labeling them in 3D. So in 3D, a pixel is called a voxel, and it has three, what's the word? Dimensions, yeah. So X, Y, and Z. And when you label them, they don't have any color value, no grayscale. It's literally like tagging something in a 3D coordinate system. So imagine you have a cube, and you do have a cube. You have a cube over here, and it has, it doesn't look like a cube, but it is. And you have, you can actually visualize that cube like that. So you're saying, if I find one of these teeth and I want to segment it, that tooth exists somewhere X, somewhere Y, and somewhere Z in a bunch of different ways because it's a certain shape. So we're going to tag all of those values. And if we were computers, we could, just like put in numbers and say, I want these values, and it would just, but we use, a visual way of doing that. So we have to see it to believe it. I don't know. So we have to actually paint this with a tool, because that's the only way we can understand it and do it. Anyway.
Painting in the end means selecting the voxels in the 3D space, the voxels you want.
So when you paint in this 2D view, you're only painting in 2 of the dimensions. That's why you have to do it a bunch of times. If you look over here, actually, maybe for this, I can make, maybe it doesn't matter. Make the text larger. Let's see real quick. Yep. I don't know. So over here, you see these slices. And this is actually different for the 3 dimensions. So that will come in handy later, but just keep that in mind. You have 4,246 slices. So if you found where your neurocranium begins, here, right? Slice, almost at the end. And then you find where it ends. Okay. Yeah. So surely not. Should be more, right? Yeah. Set it only. Yeah. Where is it in? Is this? I lost track.
This is
Here?
Yeah.
Okay. So only the entire thing, basically. Yeah. So if you wanted to paint this, it would take a very long time because you would have to do that many slices. But thankfully, we have a bunch of different tools to make it easier. Like I said, I'm going to describe somewhere in the middle. I'm just going to start and describe the most basic tool. So we have a segmentation. We want to select it and we want to add to it. So you see this little blue box, that means, yay, we can use that. We are in 2D mode, of course, and we're doing single slice. Multi-slice, I will explain later. It's another thing that makes it easier. Okay, so I don't know how you are with drawing and coloring, but if you had to do this, and you might start clicking, say, I can't color. I don't understand. Well, okay, you have to hit control first. So control actually adds to your segmentation, add, and shift removes. You can't just go clicking. That's not the same for other programs. So I want to do the narrow, oh no, I'm already out of the line. Okay, that's not very easy. I already hit this other bone. It's gonna take a while. I'm not gonna do that. You get the idea. That would take a while. I want to fix it, hit shift. All right, that fixes it. That's horrible. That's not gonna work. So the very first thing you're going to do is say, I want to tell the computer where I can paint and where I can't. So up here you have define range and show histogram if you want, doesn't matter. Everything that turned red is what you can now paint. So I'm going to, and I should have mentioned on the left is your low density values and the right is your high density values. So I'm going to drag this slider until I see what I want to paint. And that should allow you to only paint in that area. So before I do this, I'm going to make my brush bigger by holding Control and scroll up. I'm going to hold Shift to delete. That was terrible. And then I'm going to start over. So define range and make this smaller a little bit. Now I can do whatever I want. I can make it giant and say, I want to paint just this. Beautiful. Now you only have 4,000 some odd slices to go. Okay. Do it again. Get a good podcast. No. So now that you have this tool, you can combine it with some other things. Any questions so far? Okay. Too slow, too fast? No. Right. Okay. That's tools 1 and 2. Tool 3. And then we're still in the basics. Multi-slice. This, I think, from what Leopold and I have experimented and figured out, will do exactly what you've done in multiple slices at the same time, so you don't have to do them all. And I think what we've figured out is the larger your brush is, the greater number of slices it affects. So if I do this and I have multi-slice selected, I'm doing this section here. And then if you go forward, it has also done that one, that one, that one, that one, that one. Keep going. Oh, then we start to have issues. So it works as long as what you're doing is staying the same shape and size. And then as you go, it changes. So we're getting smaller and you start to not do so hot. But really, it did a lot of slices for me perfectly. Yeah. So you have to start thinking about now. Imagine I still had multi-slice selected and I said, I don't like that. I'm going to hit shift and do this and delete that. But you have to remember the reason that happened in the first place is it wasn't the right size the whole time. So my big brush is now going to encroach here. And that actually, I just caused that. So it's kind of a dance of how do I do this? So it takes a little bit of working out to figure out what does my structure look like and what size brush do I need.
So if you use this larger size brush, how many slices does it do? Are we talking 5, 10, 20, 30?
I think what it just did is about 15 or 20.
Okay.
Thing.
It paints a sphere if you're doing so.
Okay. Yeah. So maybe.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I think you can select the square too, but
Yeah, you can do a square. But that is very, very useful. So if you want to be more precise, you have to use a smaller brush, but it will paint fewer slices. So if your structure is changing fast, you would have to use a small brush. And then I would say you can do a lot with this get the bulk of your structure done, and then take it off of multi-slice and go back and fix every little issue that you see. Sometimes it's easier to fix it if you were looking at it in 3D. So now that we have something painted, you can see what it looks like in 3D. Turn on both of your items here. You have volume and your segmentation, and you can see what you've done. We've done this much of the neurocranium. Okay, questions?
Bad.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. I think.
So with a threshold,
Mhm.
you're trying to get the background disappear. Is that it?
Yeah, so threshold changes what you were allowed to paint. So I told it I don't want foam and I don't want air. Because foam and air are low density, so I drag this until I get to things that are higher density.
And if you keep dragging it, you're gonna lose some of the
Yep.
lower parts of the higher density. Is that it?
Yep, and
Oh,
as you
okay.
go, you see how,
Yeah. Is it possible to change these colors?
so it's possible to
It's
change.
again red and green.
Yeah. I can't change the red, but I can change, what's a good color? Blue or
Yeah.
no?
Yeah, it's good.
So that stands out.
Yeah.
All right, Spider-Man. Okay. So yeah, so I can't change the red. The red is, I think, default.
Sorry, I didn't pay attention. Where did you change it? The color?
Okay, if
Oh, up there.
up
okay.
here you can
There,
choose,
mm.
you can change it here after you've made the segmentation, and then when you make it, you can change it at the time of making it. Over here, you click here and say, I want mine to be yellow. Yeah. Okay. Never mind. Right. And then define range, turn that off. Continue. Can you still see that blue pretty?
Oh, yeah.
Right. All
Oh,
right.
yeah.
So what's next? Let me think.
And the strategy would be to just go through that structure you want to segment
Mhm.
with these tools.
Yes, but there are more tools.
Hmm.
So I want to show you, I'm gonna turn this off. I think I'm going to stop recording because the video will be gigantic. And then start again. If that's okay.
Sure.